What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into TTP Sports, and the Flyers' point streak sadly snaps tonight. They lose in regulation to the Colorado Avalanche by a score of 3-2. The Flyers fell down 3-0 in the beginning of the third period. They did come back. They tried to crawl their way back into the game. Owen Tippett scores a goal halfway through the third period. Tyson Forrester scores not that long after in a net mouse scramble, and the Flyers had a plethora of chances in the later stages of the game, and they just couldn't find a way to bury one, and they end up losing in regulation. So, overall, definitely finished out better than how the game started, because there were a lot of sequences in this game where Colorado was dominating, and it looked like their speed, their skill, and their talent was completely overwhelming the Flyers, especially in their own defensive zone. They had trouble getting clears. They had trouble with outlet passes. They just had trouble getting the puck out of their zone for a lot of stages during this game. And Colorado's forecheck, Colorado's speed, and sometimes the Flyers just made stupid decisions, whether it was a back pass basically to nowhere, where you throw the puck into the middle of the ice, where you throw a puck into a position where no one's in, or you're putting someone in a terrible position because they're either, crowded by a couple of players, or they got someone forechecking on their ass, and they really can't do anything with the puck. There were a lot of sequences throughout this game. That's not saying the Flyers did not have their chances. It's nothing at the end of the first period. The Flyers did have their chances in the first period after Colorado dominated for a little bit. Flyers even had some power plays, even though they got negated by their own penalties during those power plays. And the power play definitely did not look pretty today. I have no idea what some of those combinations were. And granted, you are missing some defensemen. When you lose guys like Cam York, Jamie Drysdale, where Jamie Drysdale was originally the quarterback of Power Play 1. Then you bring in, Emil Andre. He quarterbacks Power Play 1 when Drysdale's down. And now Andre is out. And now Sanheim's quarterbacking the power play from the point on the first unit. And then you got to use Ristolainen on the second unit. So I can understand why there's a little bit of dysfunction there. But it just kind of felt like they were stabbing themselves in the foot constantly on the power play. Tyson Forrester loses a couple of battles, then he takes a penalty, directly at the beginning of one of the first power plays of the game for the Flyers. And then the same thing happened, I believe it was in the third period, where Bobby Brink took a penalty. And there were situations where the Flyers, they had a power play for 4 minutes when Nathan MacKinnon, got a tripping penalty. Then he took it on sportsmanlike conduct because I guess he was chirping at the ref after. And instantly, I believe like halfway through the power play, Bobby Brink takes a penalty to negate everything, and then they take a couple of penalties after that to give, Colorado some man advantage time, and that's eventually when they do make it 3-0 at the beginning of the third period. So there were just, especially some defensive zone collapses, where in the second period it happened quite a few times, where you just lost Cale Makar on the top end near the blue line, and you don't want to lose Cale Makar because Cale Makar could do some nasty things. Guy probably should have had a hat trick tonight, but one of the goals got taken away because of goaltender interference. And was it the right call? Was it the wrong call? I have no idea. Jonathan Drouin was in the crease in front of Kolosov and really didn't give him any space to move whatsoever. But at the end of the day, I have no idea what is goaltender interference. And even saying for the referees tonight, there were a lot of questionable calls. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with the referee that went down and had to get stretchered off and go to the hospital. Hopefully everything is okay with him. And, the rest of the game was basically played with two linesmen and one referee. So there definitely were some questionable calls. There were some calls missed, especially at the end of the game, where it's like around 45, 30 seconds left. The Flyers are pressuring in the offensive zone with the extra attacker, and Travis Konecny clearly gets tripped in the offensive zone, and the ref is just staring at it, and there's no penalty called whatsoever. So that kind of ruined a little bit of things there. There were quite a few chances in that last few seconds there. Owen Tippett had a puck that came right to him on the left side of the net where he headed wide open, with one of the Colorado Avalanche, I guess, rushed back to get a stick in there before Tippett can get a shot off, and it got deflected out of play. There definitely were some chances that they missed on. So it's good to say that this team doesn't quit. That's definitely something that is still in their mold from last year, because there were, very few games last season where you can really say they got dominated or they basically gave up during the game. There definitely were games that they got dominated last season, don't get me wrong, but I would say for a majority of them, even though there were maybe some sequences where they were losing or they were down by a lot of goals, they still fought back into the game. They still made it a contest, and they didn't quit and die till the very end. And I guess you could say the same thing about this Flyers squad tonight. They didn't die, they didn't quit, they didn't give up, but a lot of things probably could have been avoided if you didn't stab yourself in the foot. Losing Cale Makar a couple of times, allowing him to score from basically the exact same spot where the second goal, it goes off of a couple of Flyers in front, and there's also screens in front of Kolosov. And for Kolosov's perspective today, I don't think he was the reason why the Flyers lost. The first two goals by Cale Makar, screens were involved. The second goal went off of two Flyers in front. And then, the third goal was basically just a defensive zone breakdown on the penalty kill, where the Flyers are going basically 4-on-3, 5-on-3, transferring into different types of penalties there. So a lot of dysfunction, a lot of confusion, really nothing you can blame the goaltender on. So I'd say Kolosov was pretty solid, and he held his own tonight. Helge Grans, he makes his NHL debut. He does get an assist, I believe, on the Tyson Forrester goal, if I'm not mistaken. So he got his first NHL assist there. And to a quick judgment on him, thought he held his own for, some perspectives of today. Didn't do anything that was eye-popping, didn't do anything that was disastrous, and I guess that's the best you can say for your first NHL game. And he did get his first point in his first game, so there's something to be said there. Not many people can record points in the NHL, especially in their NHL debut. And, Grans is not, a highly touted prospect, even though he probably is one of the more topper Flyers prospects. I don't think there's anything that stands out with his game from an offensive perspective, or just anything in general. He's just I guess you could say a solid, bottom pairing defenseman type of thing for his ceiling, I guess you can say at the end of the day. Who knows? But hey, good for him. Didn't do anything disastrous. Didn't do anything eye-popping. So, solid debut whatsoever, and you ended up getting your first point in the process. One thing that really does stand out from this game, and there's quite a few players that do stand out in a negative sort of way, even though Tyson Forrester did find a way to bury some garbage to make it a 3-2 game in the third period, he just looks off. He looks very off. Even though he does have goals in back-to-back games, there is something to be said there, and he does need to find a way to put the puck in the net more consistently. But he just looks off. He looks really off. He's just making some stupid turnovers. He's not reading the play well, and maybe that's also, granted, he's playing on a line with Ryan Poehling and Garnet Hathaway. Maybe that hurts him at the end of the day as well, but he just looks off. Joel Farabee, I wouldn't say he looks off, but there's just, I feel like there's more that Farabee can give, in my personal opinion. Who else can you really say that didn't really stand out? Noah Cates. He's not really standing out much. And Matvei Michkov should not be on a line with Noah Cates as his center, in my personal opinion, because that's just negated offense. Noah Cates is not a standout offensive player. He is a bottom six defensive type of forward. He really has no offensive upside. I would wish there was more of an offensive upside to Noah Cates, but I guess at this point he's been in the league for a few years and he really hasn't shown many flashes of consistent offense. So why is Matvei Michkov on a line with Noah Cates as his center? I think that's kind of, even though Matvei Michkov can generate offense, a center is very important to meshing out a line, especially whether if they're defensive-minded or if they're offensive-minded. And that's going to the point where something that really stood out with this game and what the Flyers just clearly lack, and it's completely obvious, we all notice at the end of the day, it's their center depth. It's their center depth. And that's really going to stand out when they play teams of this caliber, like the Colorado Avalanche, that have a lot of high skill, speed, star talent, with Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, all those type of guys, that's really going to stand out. And when you really don't have a dynamic center that can, chip into the offense or, be a key play driver in your offense, that's going to hurt you against some of these teams because you have a lot of defensive-minded centers. Sean Couturier is not the player that he once was, winning, getting nominated for Selkes year after year. He's not, that type of player anymore, considering he's had 2 back surgeries. Not saying he's a bad player, but at this point in his career, especially with those 2 surgeries, he's not a top-line center. Is he a top-line center for this team? Probably, but you could still do way better at your number one center position right now than Sean Couturier. I would say on a better team, Sean Couturier is more of a 2-3 type of center. If this team was way better and they had more center depth, he's probably more of a 2-3C at the end of the day. Then you really have Morgan Frost, who right now is in the Torts doghouse once again, even though nothing really flashes with his game at this point. I guess at this point he just is what it is. Even though Morgan Frost has so many heavy defenders in the Flyers media standpoint, there's just nothing that stands out much with Morgan Frost. You think there would be more offensive potential there, but he just doesn't realize it at the end of the day. He just does not. Then your other centers, you got Paling, you got Scott Lawton, you got Noah Cates. These are all bottom six type of guys. You don't have that dynamic number one, number two center guys that can really drive the offensive play. Imagine if Matvei Michkov had a center on his line that can flow with him with the offense and not be a hindrance to the offensive drive. Imagine that. Just imagine that. That's what the Flyers truly need. They don't have a number one center. Honestly, they don't even have a number two center. They have a bunch of bottom six centers. And that's not going to cut it. And granted, that's something that they really need to do. They got to go out there and find a way to get some centers, because whether that's go out and get a center from a team that, I know a lot of people throw Trevor Zegras out there. I'm not sure how you would get him. He definitely is a guy that looks like you need to change the scenery or something like that. I don't know. And if you're looking to building through the draft, are you looking to get your top centers through the draft? And that's, a longer process than maybe going out there, being aggressive in the trade market and going after some young centers that, teams are finding struggles to keep on the roster, like stacked rosters and all that stuff. And they were top prospects on their team, young centers, and maybe, trading them over to the Flyers can give them a better opportunity to look like what they would be in a top six situation. So, a lot of people during the offseason threw out Cole Perfetti, even though that's most likely out of the water with how good Winnipeg is this year. Marco Rossi from the Minnesota Wild, even though that's probably thrown out of the table because of how good the Minnesota Wild are this year. So you got to take chances. You got to take risks in the trade market, and that's something that Danny Briere and Keith Jones need to look at right now, because they do have a lot of draft picks styled up, stockpiled up. So they got to find a way to be creative and get some top centers here, because even though they don't have to do it right this second, but there's going to have to be a situation where they do have to start doing something instead of just waiting for, salary to clear off of the cap. They're going to have to start doing something. I would expect maybe that you could package some of these draft picks and maybe acquire a player or something like that. I don't know what you do, but you desperately need, if this team wants to turn the corner and they want to be competitive for years to come and they want to pair people with Matvei Michkov for the future, you got to get some dynamic center talent in here. You got to get it. You desperately need the number one center. You need a number two center. You need two top centers. It's a lot of work to find, and it's very difficult to find those guys. So you got to be working from nonstop, basically nonstop to try to find these guys. They desperately need it, and that's the one thing this team is really lacking. Besides, obviously like a number one defenseman. Who knows? Maybe that's Travis Sanheim now, because this dude has been playing like a dog for basically the entirety of this season. He's been really good, and this dude is clocking 30 minutes a game. Hopefully he doesn't run out of fucking gas at this point, but, he's earning those minutes. He's been the Flyers' best overall defenseman, so we'll see where that takes them. But, yeah, even you can look at number one defenseman. That's also something they're lacking. But center is really, really something they need. Badly. So, what are you going to do? But, once again, I guess you could say, team didn't quit. That is an important sign, of building a team. They don't quit. They don't die and all that. So, we'll see where this takes them. It's the first loss in a little bit here. Snapping the point streak. It's the first game without recording a point in the standings. So, we'll see where this takes them. Got a lot of home games upcoming once again. Even though, you got an even tougher game this Wednesday in the Wells Fargo Center. You play the Carolina Hurricanes. And we lost to the Hurricanes earlier a couple of weeks ago, 6-4. So we'll see where that takes us. Then you got the Chicago Blackhawks this Saturday at 1, Vegas next week, Nashville, Rangers, and the Blues as well. So, like I said, only going to get a little bit more difficult from here. Got to see what this team, they like I said, they really just need centers. That's basically it. They just need centers. And also something that's just a side topic. When the fuck did the Washington Capitals get this good? Alex Ovechkin has completely turned back the clock. This dude is scoring goals left and right again. He had a hat trick, I believe, the other night, and he has 2 goals tonight in Utah. Like, what the hell is going on here? When did the Capitals get this good? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I guess that's what happens when Alex Ovechkin is back to prime Ovi. Jesus Christ, he might even break the record this year at this rate. What is he, like 29, 28 goals away from breaking Gretzky's record? Probably will happen this year. Who knows? Who knows? But we do have a voicemail here before we close it off on the Anytime Hotline. So let's get to Sean. Let's see what he has to say about this game right here.
Can't really be too upset with this loss. I mean, I thought they were lucky to be in the game early with the amount of turnovers and chances that they were given the Avalanche. You knew that they were going to cash in eventually. The bottom line is they just dug themselves too deep of a hole and couldn't quite climb out of it. But there were some positives. I mean, Kolosov, I thought, played well, and Helgi Grans, especially with more defensemen dropping like flies. I mean, the kid didn't look out of place out there, and he had 2 of the better scoring chances of the night that he couldn't cash in on. But if you're the Flyers, again, you've got to be letter perfect. When you have a 2-on-0 breakaway and you can't get a shot on goal against a team like Colorado, you knew things like that were going to come back to bite them. But, it's part of the growth process. I mean, they're light years behind Colorado skill-wise. They'll lose again to Carolina, setting up Bedard versus Michkov on Saturday. That's a game I think the Flyers can prevail on. Hopefully the injuries aren't too serious, but again, good workmanlike effort at the end, but just too big of a hole to climb out of from early.
Yeah, I even forgot about that 2-on-0 situation that you just brought up. I think that was on a penalty kill situation where I think it was Makar on the point, actually. This was in the second period, if I'm not mistaken, where his stick basically just shatters on, I guess, a shot attempt or a pass attempt. It's just one of those unfortunate situations, and the Flyers pounced on it. I think it was Lawton and Forrester or Cates and Forrester, and they were doing the back and forth passing because Makar didn't have a stick to basically interfere with the play, and they just couldn't get a shot on that. It was back and forth passing with Lawton and Forrester, Cates and Forrester, whoever the other person was, and couldn't get a shot on that. You got to find a way to bury that. It's just, you gotta. And like Sean said, when you get those many chances and you don't find a way to bury them, especially against a team like Colorado, it's going to come back to bite you in the ass. And injury-wise, I think Jaeger Zamula also left this game in the third period. He went down the tunnel, came back for a little bit on the bench, then left once again. So hopefully that's nothing too serious, because right now defensemen are falling like flies for this team. You just lost Andre. You still don't know when York and Drysdale are coming back. So that's very annoying from that standpoint. So I'm not sure what they're going to do for the Carolina game unless York or Drysdale is good to go for that game. We'll just have to wait and see. Even Forster left for a little bit. I believe he took a puck to the face in the third period at something before he scored his goal. Farabee took a heavy block in the third period that sat him on the bench for a little bit. So they're playing banged up right now. That definitely is a fact. That 100% is a fact. So we'll see. And hopefully this, groin issue with Ersson doesn't become a reoccurring thing this year, because groins are definitely a tricky thing to manage, especially with goaltenders. So that's also something that you just got to keep your eye on as the rest of the season goes along. So we'll see. We'll see. But that'll do it for tonight, everybody. I appreciate you all tuning in as always, so don't forget to leave your comments in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Great deal. Don't pass it up. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.